Lieutenant Colonel Eddie Kinley, Jr.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you.
Let us reverently bow our heads for a word of prayer. Eternal Heavenly Father, we've assembled here this morning in the Hall of Heroes in remembrance of the brave men and women who offered their service and sacrifice in defense of this great country and her allies. Let us not forget the 72,000 lost in World War II, 7,000 missing from the Korean War and the 1,500 in Vietnam, who raised their right hand, leaving behind friends and families and loved ones. We thank you that we can take a moment out of the daily grind of our day and reflect and remember the unsung heroes who never returned home, who never had the opportunity to reunite, and yet who were willing to give their all in sacrifice and service to the recipients of the land of the free and the home of the brave. Today, O God, we honor their loyalty, courage, and selfless service. Today we remember and reflect, and for this we thank you. Hear our prayer. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, General Daniel Hokanson, Chief of the National Guard, Bureau.
Secretary Austin, ambassadors of our partner nations, DoD leaders, and our distinguished guests. Today, we honor and observe POW MIA Recognition Day. We ache with the absence of those who remain missing. We wrap our arms around the families who bear the burden of dark and heavy questions. We find strength in our international partners and our shared humanity for this solemn mission. We seek solace in the timeless efforts of compassionate professionals and service organizations who refuse to rest until every American comes home. But more than that, we grapple with the concepts of always and never, and the murky spaces in between. Always stretches beyond time. It's a promise that transcends death. Never is also a promise. It is definitive, final, and unmoving. And the murky spaces in between are the timeless questions. What are the limits of human endurance? Where can we find peace? Who can bear the weight of uncertainty? And how long can hope survive? My family grappled with these questions in November of 1967 when they received word my uncle was missing in action after his infantry company was overrun during the Battle of Dak To in Vietnam. For the families in this room, and more than 81,000 families still awaiting answers, the questions stretch across months years, and decades, some even the better part of a century. Sometimes the answer is the happiest one. Your loved one is alive and coming home to you. Sometimes the answer is nothing but bitter grief. But sometimes our loved ones remain missing, denying us the promise of always and never. These are the service members and families we honor here today. But our nation has made a promise. If you pledge your life to our nation, if you pledge your life to our Constitution, we will not leave you behind. We will never leave you behind. And that is why we continue the search, unyielding, relentless, across distance and time, to keep our promise always. First Lieutenant James E. Wright from Lumber Bridge, North Carolina, cared about others. His family described him as handsome and kind and deeply committed to his community. He began his military service as a member of L Company, 120th Infantry Regiment, which is today part of the 30th Armor Brigade Combat Team of the North Carolina National Guard. He transferred to the 5th Infantry Division in 1942, which is how he ended up on the banks of the Moselle River in France in September of 1944. His regiment crossed the river and took up position in the woods, but after sustaining heavy losses, they were forced to pull back. A few soldiers stayed behind to search for the wounded and the missing, remembering their promise to leave no one behind. Lieutenant Wright was one of those soldiers. After rescuing 3 wounded soldiers on the German-occupied side of the river, Lieutenant Wright crossed the river one more time. He was never seen again. Except never in this case was not never. Last year, 77 years after his death along the Moselle, Lieutenant Wright came home. After an anonymous burial in the Luxembourg American Cemetery, after research by the 7th Armored Division Association, after his remains were sent to the POW MIA Accounting Agency laboratory, after generations of questions in the murky space between, Lieutenant Wright came home to Lumber Bridge. He is buried at the Oakdale Cemetery in the community he loved and nearly in sight of the home where his family waited for his return. Nearly 4,300 miles away, Lieutenant Wright's name is still on the walls of the missing at the Epinal American Cemetery in France. But now, next to his name is a rosette, a symbol the missing has been found. And that brings us to the promise of always and never, a concept that is never far from those who serve our nation, but one we bring to the fore on POW MIA Remembrance Day. Love is always, family is always, duty, service, and honor, they are always. My family's news in 1967 was bittersweet. Uncle Steve's battalion of 330 Sky soldiers suffered 95 killed and 87 wounded at Dak To. After his company was overrun, Steve hid in the North Vietnamese occupied area, caring for his best friend, Robert Bly, who was severely wounded. When the U.S. retook the area, Steve was found alive next to the body of his best friend. Our family received the good news. Robert Bly's family received the opposite news. But their son's name lives on in my uncle's firstborn son, my cousin, Robert Bly Hokanson. Because of love, and because of our family, and because of duty, service, and honor, we never leave our fellow service members behind. We never let their memory fade. We never give up hope, and we never give up the search. We always remember, we never forget, and we will never rest until every last American comes home. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It is now my honor to introduce the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin, our 28th Secretary of Defense.
Well, thank you, General Hokanson, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this important occasion. I'm especially honored to welcome Colonel Mike Brazelton. An accomplished Air Force pilot who spent more than 6 years in captivity in Vietnam. And Colonel Brazelton, your monumental courage and sacrifice inspires us all, and I thoroughly enjoyed spending some time with you this morning. There's a rumor out there that Colonel Brazelton actually conducted a parachute jump yesterday or earlier this week. I confirmed that that rumor is true, so he's still very active. I'd also like to recognize your daughter, Adriana, who's carrying on your legacy of military service. We're also joined today by ambassadors of partner nations whose support has been invaluable in searching for and recovering our missing. So thanks to all of you for being here. We are tremendously grateful for your support and welcome to the Pentagon. To the family members of those who are still missing, you have shown unimaginable strength amid terrible uncertainty. And please know that your loved ones are always in our hearts. And we are humbled by your fortitude through the long years of waiting. Every year on National POW and MIA Recognition Day, we gather to honor American service members who were taken captive and to stand with the families of the missing and the unaccounted for, and to renew our commitment to bring home our missing heroes. Just a few days ago, we saw how much this solemn mission matters, as one American family got the chance to honor the heroic service of a loved one. In 1943, an Army Air Corps lieutenant colonel named Addison Baker was leading his pilots in a low-flying attack on enemy-controlled oil fields in Romania. As he neared his target, the enemy hit him with an anti-aircraft shell. His plane was burning and damaged, and he could have chosen to land. But Colonel Baker was determined to complete the mission. So he kept going until he hit his target. But afterwards, his damaged plane tragically crashed into the town below. The following year, Colonel Baker was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his valor. And we're proud to have his name on the wall right here in the Hall of Heroes. Now, the department never gave up on recovering his remains. And nearly 8 decades after his daring mission, scientists at Offutt Air Force Base used innovative forensic techniques to identify him. And so this week, his family got to say a proper goodbye and to bury Colonel Baker at Arlington. And we have some of Colonel Baker's family here with us. We welcome you to the Pentagon, and I absolutely enjoyed having the opportunity to meet with you earlier today. Thanks for your sacrifices, your patience, your determination, your great example of persistence. We all know how much this moment means to you and your family, and we couldn't be prouder to be here with you today, so thanks for sharing this day with us. Now, over the years, thousands of families have had the chance to honor loved ones who have been in prison or missing. And that's because of the dedicated work by public servants in this department and the service organizations that work alongside them. But we know that we have more work to do, a lot more work to do. As you heard General Hokanson say earlier, more than 81,000 American service members and civilians remain unaccounted for. And the experts at the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency say that nearly half of those may be recoverable. Now, this is a monumental task, but it's also a sacred obligation. Because everyone who serves in the United States military makes a solemn commitment to this country, and their families do as well. And this country makes a solemn promise to them in return to provide the fullest possible accounting for anyone who goes missing in a line of duty. And it's our solemn obligation to do right by those who sacrifice to defend our security and our democracy. And so I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who works so hard to honor that commitment. Our experts at the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency work in 46 countries. And they painstakingly search for remains and then use cutting-edge forensic testing and techniques to identify the missing. And our partners around the globe lend vital support, including former foes that have become friends, and family and veteran service organizations, many of them here today, shine a spotlight on this important cause and help us fulfill our pledge to those who have served. These efforts combine innovation and skill with compassion and unwavering resolve, all to ensure that America fulfills this sacred promise. Over the past year, the department has identified more than 150 missing individuals, including Colonel Baker. And behind each successful identification is a family story. These are stories of pain and uncertainty, but also of hope and endurance, and relief when long-sought answers are finally found. The black and white flag that we fly in honor of our POW and MIAs bears a simple but powerful message to the families of those still missing and to all those who serve and to our nation. And that message is that we will never forget, we will never give up hope, and we will never stop working to find answers and to bring home our missing. And to all those who were taken captive and have come home, you have borne unspeakable hardship with resilience and patriotism. We are enormously grateful. And to the families of the captured and missing, your strength and your faith inspire us every day. Thank you to all who sacrifice so much to keep this country safe and to ensure that we keep our most sacred pledge to the men and women who serve. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Would all family members representing prisoners of war and those still missing in action please stand to be honored with a moment of silence? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Department of Defense 2022 POW MIA Recognition Day ceremony.